Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another Logan Blackman Show YouTube video. I hope you all have had a fantastic couple weeks. I do apologize for the lack of video there last week, as we're in the transition period. We got the soccer tournaments all done. We did the U.S. Squad World Cup prediction for 2026, which you can go check out that video. I'll link that somewhere on the screen. And we're getting ready to start the 2025-2026 NFL and college football seasons. And starting today is the first game of the season. Yes, it's a preseason game. Yes, it's the Hall of Fame game, but it's still football. And we're going to see Trey Lance start a football game, which in itself is an insane feat in reality, because I think it was Mike Golick Jr. tweeted out, I think a lot of people that haven't really been paying attention to the NFL offseason just found out that Trey Lance is on the Los Angeles Chargers, because most people remember him from his preseason game against Los Angeles Rams last year, where he went up against Stetson Bennett, and before that we saw him get run out of town in San Francisco after he snapped his leg against the Seattle Seahawks and got his job taken from him by Mr. Irrelevant and Brock Purdy. But this video, if you can tell by the title, is the Logan Blackman Show staff quarterback rankings for the 2025 NFL season. And if you're wondering what that means, so I went out and I've done that. This is now the fourth year, which is insane in its own right to think about. This is the fourth year I've been doing this, where I go out and I ask 15 to 20 people, friends, associates, whatever, and get their top 10 quarterbacks in order for this upcoming season. And I just shoot them a text and say, hey, can you send me a top 10 list? And when they send it, I just go, thanks. I don't add any other information in there. I just go, hey, can I get your list? Here it is. Thank you. Appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up. Move on, because I don't want to answer any questions. I don't want anybody to change their list. I want them to send their list off the top of their skull, send it in, and then we just move on. And again, it's just crazy. This is the fourth year done it. We did 2022, 2023 last season, and this year. And what we do with these rankings, and I got this idea from SDS, Sharky Does Sports, which you can go check them out down in the description as well. But if you rank a quarterback in first place, let's say you put Patrick Mahomes first place on your list, Patrick Mahomes gets 10 points to his grand total. So if 15 people put Patrick Mahomes first place, he gets 150 points out of a possible 150. So however many people submit lists, it's out of that many. And this year we got 20 submissions, including my own, obviously, for this upcoming video. So it's out of a possible 200 points. And it obviously goes to first place gets 10 points, second place 9 points, third place 8 points, and so on and so forth until we get an official top 10 list. And there were 17 different quarterbacks mentioned. Last year we had 18. And you can go check out the 2022, 2023, and 2024 list down in the description below. Make sure to go check out all the different links to social media down there as well. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you like this video already, because we like before we try here, give it a thumbs up. But if you're not a trusting individual, wait till the end of the video and give it a thumbs up. And also leave a comment down below on what you think of the combined top 10 list, or the 17 quarterbacks that I'll be mentioning here, because it's a very interesting debate, because everybody's got their own opinions of what they value in the quarterback position. And we was like, you could do running backs and receivers, but the quarterback position, as I just said, is the most highly publicized, highly scrutinized, highly praised position, and not just football, but in all of sports in general, because there's one quarterback on the field. There are 32 jobs in the NFL at quarterback, and it's kind of funny to see who comes in what places, or people that I don't really think should be considered top 10 quarterbacks. We'll get to my list, and I'll talk about everybody else's list at the end of the video, but kicking things off at number 17 is Trevor Lawrence, who got one singular vote. He got placed in 10th place on one other person's place, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, about who placed him in what spots. Well, again, we'll go through all the lists and everything, but Trevor Lawrence coming in last place on this doesn't really surprise me. Trevor Lawrence is a very, very polarizing figure at the quarterback position, because I think a lot of people out there, including myself, are waiting for Trevor Lawrence to take that next step, to show us that he's worth the big contract that the Jaguars paid him, show us that he was worth the tag of generational prospect, of can't miss prospect, of the Andrew Lucks and the John Elways of the world in regards to prospects at the position. And he almost got killed in his first year in the NFL because he was with that Urban Meyer team, which is just a death that no one really deserves. But Trevor Lawrence is talented enough to get past that. And he had a good success with Doug Peterson in his first year. Didn't really see the same success last year. Battled some injuries the past couple years. And this year with Liam Cohen coming in, with them drafting Travis Hunter, with Brian Thomas Jr. being there as well, they still got to figure out what they're doing at running back, whether it's Travis Etienne or if it's Tank Bigsby. Like, the Jaguars are an interesting team, and Trevor Lawrence, again, is a highly polarizing quarterback, and I'm not surprised someone put him in their top 10 list. I don't have him in top 10 personally, but I can understand why, but that's why he comes in at number 17 with 1 point out of a possible 200. And the next quarterback that we have on here in 16th place is Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers, receiving 4 votes in this. I believe he got 1 last place vote and he got a 7th place vote in there as well to give him a grand total of 4 out of a possible 200. Jordan Love is someone I really like. I am a massive fan of Jordan Love. I think he's super talented. Remember last year, going into that game against the Philadelphia Eagles down in Brazil, he gets the high ankle sprain. He rushes back into it in the game against the Minnesota Vikings. You just really didn't see, like, he doesn't look healthy. You can tell he's not healthy in that game. Malik Willis did fine in sparing him for that little bit, but Jordan Love, talent-wise, is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. That game against the Dallas Cowboys a couple years ago in the wild card game showed that. You saw some of the throws that he was making in that game. Not a lot of other quarterbacks in the league can make, but Jordan Love, again, because of the injury that he suffered week 1 and not really allowing himself to fully come back from that, I think really hurt him in the long run of last season. But again, I'm not shocked that he's been mentioned in the top 10, because last year I had him in the top 10. I think I had him like 7 or 8 in my top 10 list last year because, again, I'm a big fan of him and a fan of what he can do. And I like the job that, I want. It's weird because the Packers don't have that number 1 alpha guy. Yes, they did draft Matthew Golden this past year's draft, and there's going to be some people that are wanting that alpha there, but they're allowing Jordan Love and these receivers to grow with each other, whether it's Dobbs, whether it's Jaden Reed, whether it's Dontavian Wicks, whether it's Matthew Golden, whether it's the tight ends of Kraft, and I'm completely blanking, the Oregon State to Musgrave, Luke Musgrave. Then you got Josh Jacobs at running back. I like Jordan Love a lot. He comes in at number 16 on this list. And number 15 on this list is, and I'm surprised they got mentioned as much as he did. He got 6 people putting him on their list. Now, 5 of them were last place votes. He got 1 vote for 9th place, so he got 2 points from that one. So he's got 7 points in total, and he's coming off a very good rookie season. That's Bo Nix from the Denver Broncos. Helped get the Broncos back to the playoffs this year. Helped rid them of the Russell Wilson ick, I guess you could really call it, where Sean Payton was just desperate to get rid of him. He was just like, I'm done with Russell Wilson. I will do anything to get rid of him. We'll take a massive cap hit, dead cap, all that stuff, just to get someone else in. Remember, he did the whole chuckling things. He's like, oh, we made the Minnesota Vikings draft McCarthy, but I don't really think the Minnesota Vikings were ever looking at Bo Nix. I don't think a lot of other teams around that area were looking at Bo Nix except for the Denver Broncos. Maybe you could talk about the Raiders in there or something, but Bo Nix played very, very well. What we saw at Oregon throughout his past couple seasons there was a completely different Bo Nix than what we saw at Auburn. What we saw at Oregon, we saw quick decision making. He's one of the quickest, fastest decision makers in all of college football. He's got a load of experience in there as well, and that experience showed throughout the course of the season as he was given the starting job right away in Denver. And they had other quarterbacks in there, like Zach Wilson was there. I'm pretty sure Rippon was there as well, and those guys aren't great quarterbacks by any stretch of the imagination, but they have more experience, so it would have made sense to, like, oh, we're going to ease him into it before we unleash him on everything. But he was given the starting job like that, and you can see the relationship between him and Sean Payton to where you're like, okay, this guy's really clicking. And that experience that he had at Oregon and at Auburn, with the kind of mistakes that he had at Auburn, took to Oregon, and now he's taking that to the NFL, and he's playing really well. Again, got the Broncos back to the playoffs. They lost the Bills in the first round of the playoffs. Not sorry about that, but he put forth a very successful season. I'm excited to see what he does going into these next couple years, because he's mobile, got a decent arm, again, quick decision maker in there as well. I'm excited to see what he does, and I'm not surprised that he's on this list. I'm surprised that 6 people nominated him. I didn't think he'd be that much. I thought he would get some mentions, because there's a couple Broncos fans that are in this list, but even some of the other people that aren't Broncos fans put Bo Nix high up on this list. So he comes in at number 15, but if you would have told me before this video came out that he would be above the likes of Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence, I would have called you crazy. But Bo Nix, again, very good rookie season. I'm not surprised he's within these rankings by any stretch of the imagination. And the next quarterback on here in 14th place with 11 points is Sam Darnold from the Seattle Seahawks, formerly of the Minnesota Vikings. Was given like a lifeline by Kevin O'Connell and co. in Minnesota to help revive his career and give the Vikings a nice bridge quarterback for their future starter in J.J. McCarthy, who's going to be the starter this year. Sam Darnold, 35 touchdowns to his name this past year. Had a year that, like, the Vikings have always, like, we knew going into the year that the Minnesota Vikings had talent. You look at Justin Jefferson, you look at Jordan Addison, you look at TJ Hawkinson. Though he was coming off an injury the previous year, they had TJ Hawkinson. Aaron Jones had a lot of experience at the running back position. They had a solid enough offensive line, which they've made improvements upon that this offseason. But you like Brian O'Neill, Christian Darrisaw, like 2 of the best tackles in the entire NFL, arguably the best tackle tandem in the NFL, depending on who you ask. So it was like, okay, they got the pieces there with Kevin O'Connell as the head coach, Josh McCown being on the staff as well to provide that little bit as well, who was with Sam Darnold his rookie year with the Jets. So it made sense for him to go there, but I don't think people were expecting him to do as well as he did. And with that, I don't think people were expecting the Vikings to do as well as they did, winning 13 or 14 games this past year. Yes, they crashed out in the playoffs, but that offense with Sam Darnold was just so fun to watch, and it was fun to root for Sam Darnold. But in the same breath, it didn't make a lot of sense for the Vikings long-term to sign him to an extension, but that's what the Seahawks came in and did after they traded Geno Smith to the Raiders. Darnold deserved another chance in the NFL. A long-term extension with the Vikings didn't really make the most sense since they traded up. Yes, there was only one spot, but they still traded up to draft J.J. McCarthy last year. And yeah, Sam Darnold was just needing confidence. Like, you saw what happened with the Jets when you're talking about I'm seeing ghosts on the sideline. Then he gets traded to the Carolina Panthers. He gets replaced by a guy who got taken before him in his own draft class. And then he goes to the 49ers. He's sitting behind Mr. Relevant. He had zero confidence. Sam Darnold's a very confidence-based player, and he just didn't really have that. He didn't have that with the Jets. He didn't have that with the Panthers, or he didn't really play with the Niners, but it was a nice, stable ground for him, and that led into being the Minnesota Vikings quarterback and seeing what he did last year with J.J. McCarthy going down hurt. There was nobody challenging him for that spot, so he was allowed to grow and build on those relationships with those receivers, and he coupled that again into a nice contract with the Seahawks. So I'm excited to see what he does, but Sam Darnold comes in here, 11 points, 14th place for the former Minnesota Viking, current Seattle Seahawk. And the next person on this list with 12 points is his new division rival, the guy he actually sat behind in San Francisco. It's Brock Purdy, Mr. Relevant. And Purdy didn't really have the greatest statistical season that he's had throughout the course of his career, but the 49ers in general did not have the greatest year. You look at all the injuries they had, the lack of stability they really had in the offensive line. Like, Christian McCaffrey was hurt damn near the entire year. You didn't really have any consistency at wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk got hurt after the holdout. George Kittle was still there, but the rest of the offensive line was rough, especially the right side of the O-line. So there was just never that much consistency with the 49ers, and Purdy's numbers struggled because of that. There are people out there, I wouldn't say I'm one of them. I'm not really somebody that sits here and pounds the table for Brock Purdy and says, yes, this is a guy that I think is one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, but I do understand where people are coming from if they do have him in that list. And this also has to be noted here. I don't think it has a massive thing to do with it, but I do think there's a tinge of it in there. I'm from Iowa. A lot of people that are in this list are from Iowa as well. And a lot of the people that are in this list not only are from Iowa, but are also Iowa State fans. I am not an Iowa State fan, so I don't want to see this coming off as I'm a Brock Purdy hater because I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback because I'm an Iowa fan. It's nothing to do with that because Brock Purdy never beat Iowa, so I don't have any issues with that. I don't have any issues with them. I want to root for him because he played in the state of Iowa, and I want him to do well, but this past year wasn't really it. But I do think he is a starter in the NFL, an elite quarterback, a guy that you can attach a trailer to and he can pull you all the way to the Super Bowl. I don't know about that, but he's a good quarterback, and I'm not surprised he was in this list. He comes in at number 13, receiving 12 points above the guy he was the starter above in San Francisco. And coming in at number 12 on this list with a grand total of 14 points, this guy didn't even play 14 games this past year, but the year before, he did finish second in the MVP race. He was a second-team All-Pro selection as well. And if you know what that is by the hint, that's Dak Prescott. So Dak Prescott comes in at number 12, above the likes of Purdy, Darnold, Jordan Love, Bo Nix, and Trevor Lawrence. And Dak Prescott is a guy that's very polarizing me, mostly because of the fact that he's the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, but it also has to do with the fact that I believe he's the highest earning quarterback per average throughout the entire NFL, and we just haven't really seen those consistent figures from Dak Prescott. Like, is Dak Prescott a good quarterback? Yes, but the term elite, or if he's truly considered to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, definitely, it varies on who you ask, I guess you could say. And no surprise, the people that had him the highest on this list were the Cowboys fans, but you have to have that loyalty in there as well. But Dak Prescott, playing only 8 games last year, I didn't really think about it, but if you look at like the NFL top 100 players, like, they're still going to put in players that barely played the season before if they're coming off a season like Dak had the season prior, where he put up very good numbers with CeeDee Lamb, and those two were just an insane connection there. I'm intrigued to see what he does with Brian Schottenheimer coming as the head coach. Obviously, he was his offensive coordinator before. Brought in George Pickens. There's a whole new running back room behind him as well. So it's going to be intriguing to see how him and the Cowboys adjust to this upcoming season, because it was a very disappointing year last year for Dallas, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that Dak only played 8 games, but he comes in here at number 12, and at number 11, this is a guy that I did not put in my personal top 10, but I struggled immensely not doing. He's the guy that I rotated with number 10 about 1,000 times, my own personal list, and that's CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans. And he comes in with, I believe, 15 points, so 1 point more than Dak Prescott. So these last guys, just outside the top 10, they're very much battling for those spots. There's not a lot of points separating each individual quarterback in this list, but CJ Stroud is a very weird one because unlike Dak Prescott, where he missed time this past year, CJ Stroud had an immense drop-off from the season prior. He only had 20 touchdowns. He had 12 interceptions. Yes, he had 3,700 passing yards, but the numbers, you just didn't really see that same consistency from CJ Stroud that we saw in a rookie season that a lot of people were talking about being one of the greatest of all time. So you were excited to see how the Texans followed up that. They brought in Stephon Diggs this offseason. Bobby Sloak was coming into his second year as the offensive coordinator. A lot of people were expecting him to take a head coaching job. So like, oh my God, he stayed back. Like Ben Johnson in Detroit, he stayed back. They're going to grow together for another year, and then he's going to take a head coaching job somewhere else next year. But Stroud, like we talked about before, that consistency from everybody else around him definitely hurt what he did in regards to his own individual production. Nico Collins missed time. Tank Dell blew up his entire leg. Stephon Diggs only played, I think, 8 games and tore his ACL. The offensive line was a wreck. The Texans have completely scrapped the offensive line from this past year. He got sacked 11 times in just 2 playoff games this year against the Chargers and Chiefs. He got sacked 8 times against the Chiefs alone. They fired Bobby Slowick this offseason, so it's going to be a new direction on offense. They also brought in Nick Chubb, because I think Joe Mixon's just out he just got announced that he's out for the season. So the Texans are going to be a team where you're like, man, what version of CJ Stroud are we going to get this upcoming season? Are we going to get the guy that had the amazing elite rookie season, or are we going to get the guy that struggled this past year? And again, all the issues that happen in the Texans organization definitely hindered CJ Stroud's on-the-field performance, because I think CJ Stroud, if everything's clicking, is one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. But with how much his production and how much his play seemingly dropped off from the season prior, I left him out, and he comes in at number 11, again with 15 points on this list. And just to talk about the jump from 11 to 10, CJ Stroud, again, like we talked about, has 15 points. The guy in 10th has 31 points. There's our first significant jump in this list. Like, we've slowly been building up, and now we've just doubled it on our next one. And number 10 comes in as Baker Mayfield. We're talking about career resurgence like we did with Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield's career was done and dusted in the NFL. He got ran out of Cleveland for Deshaun Watson. He played hurt, played with a bum shoulder. That affected his play greatly. He got shipped off to Carolina, took the job from Sam Darnold. I can't remember if he got hurt or just benched, and he said, I need to get cut. He went to the Rams. And it was like, okay, well, Baker's just going to wash out now. It's like, okay, Baker Mayfield's career is completely done. And then not only was his career not done, he had that great last second half of the season with the Rams. He coupled that into a nice little contract, like a bumper deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to replace Tom Brady. And you go into that season replacing the GOAT and Tom Brady. I don't think a lot of people really look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and go like, okay, this is a team that has playoff aspirations or division title aspirations, because your 2 quarterbacks are Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. But since he's been in Tampa, Baker Mayfield leads the NFL in touchdowns with 69. That is an insane feat from where he was before. He had 41 passing touchdowns this past year to 16 interceptions. And you look at some of the receivers he had. Chris Godwin only played 7 games. Mike Evans missed time this year. I mean, Bucky Irving being back as the running, or having that emergence, that's the word I'm looking for, at the running back position as a rookie from Oregon, rushing for over 1,000 yards, I think was massive. The fact the Buccaneers have a solid base in front of him on the offensive line with Tristan Wirfs there, who's the first All-Pro at both left tackle and right tackle, which is just an insane feat in its own right. It's going to be intriguing to see how they do without Liam Cohen. Remember, he diddled around this offseason with the Jaguars and the Bucs, then before ended up going to the Jaguars. So we'll see how he does down there. But Baker Mayfield has the arm, has the moxie. He has everything you want to cheer for in a quarterback. And yes, I know the 16 interceptions is not ideal, but if you're a quarterback, like, I'm not the biggest person to talk about like, oh, the interceptions are a bad thing. I can't really sit here and say that, because if you're more than doubling your interception total with touchdowns, I can live with 16 interceptions. You're throwing 41 touchdowns. I'm perfectly content with you having 16 interceptions, especially if you're 3rd in the league in passing yards as well. So I'm cool with it, but Baker Mayfield, that resurgence has been so awesome. Again, leading the league in touchdowns the past 2 years, total touchdowns the past 2 years, or passing touchdowns the past 2 years, is really awesome. So I'm rooting for Baker, and he comes in at number 10. He was number 10 on my list as well. And coming in at number 9 with 38 points is a guy who actually wears number 9, and that is Matthew Stafford from the Los Angeles Rams. We're talking about people that have had injuries. Matt Stafford and that Rams team, they battled a buttload of injuries on the opposite side of the ball. You look at Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua both missing time. I think Cooper Kupp only played 11 games. Puka Nacua played 12. So he's basically playing with a who's who receiving core, and his stats weren't really the same stats that we've seen Matthew Stafford have before. I think he only had 20-something touchdowns this past year with 8 interceptions. It's not like the most eye-popping numbers out there, but it's kind of one of those things where less is more, because when Matt Stafford needed to step up, he proved he was still the same Matt Stafford that helped the Rams get to the Super Bowl win the Super Bowl a couple years ago. And Kyren Williams at running back was awesome for them. And the Rams defense, though is very young and has a lot of talent in there, statistically did not have the greatest season. The Rams started off 1-5 last year and not only got to the playoffs, they won their division again, and they won a playoff game in the process. We're this close to beating the Eagles in Philadelphia in the snow again. Like, it was just a couple plays away from the Rams potentially knocking off the Philadelphia Eagles in the process. But Matt Stafford, he still got it. Old guy still got it. He can make every single throw on the field. We talk about the sidearm. We talk about the no-look passes. Matt Stafford's got all of that still down to a T. And Cooper Kupp's gone. He's now up in Seattle with Sam Darnold, but they brought in Devontae Adams. Still got Puka Nacua there, so hopefully he can stay healthy. Offensive line, hopefully that stays improved, and hopefully Matt Stafford can stay healthy as well, and they can go on to continue. Now, I had Matt Stafford at 6, so I had him a lot higher than this because I think Matt Stafford still got it, and I struggle with the guy that I had at number 7, who's ironically the guy who's here at number 8, and that's Justin Herbert, who I could flip back and forth between these two. And I love that these two just happen to be right next to each other in this list because Herbert is insanely talented. Herbert this past year only had 3 interceptions to his name throughout the whole course of the regular season. But the problem is he had 4 in the postseason. And the reason I ended up putting Stafford above Herbert, who again, Herbert is one of my personal favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. We're talking about great rookie seasons. That was Justin Herbert's first year with the Chargers. He even started the first couple games of the year because Tyrod Taylor was there. But with Tyrod Taylor getting his lungs punctured by the doctor, that allowed Herbert to take that opportunity and put up great numbers that he did and become the Chargers face of the franchise for the Chargers. He can make every single throw on the football field. He has one of the strongest arms in the league. He's a very accurate thrower as well. He's a decent mover as well. He's got the big size on him as well. He's a very good play action quarterback, one of the most deadly play action quarterbacks in the NFL. And they had Ladd McConkey this past year with 1,100 yards. But apart from that, you're looking at Quentin Johnston. Will Disley was in there. They did bring in Tyler Conklin from the Jets. They drafted Trey Harris in the second round, which I think is awesome. J.K. Dobbins was there last year, got 900-something yards, like 12 games, which is also really good. But Omarion Hampton's coming in. They drafted him with the first-round pick, so I think that's a good move as well. They're re-upping the offensive line. They brought in Mekhi Becton. They're moving Zion Johnson, the center, moving Bradley Bozeman over to guard, so we'll see how that all works out for him. But the Chargers are moving in a direction that I like, where Jim Harbaugh's not going to ask the quarterback to do too much. And I don't want Herbert to get stuck in a situation where he's having to do too much and forcing the issue a little bit. And that's one of the issues that I've had with Herbert versus Stafford, is that in the clutch moments, or when you need him to make those types of plays in those specific moments, notably in the playoffs, he struggled in those. You look at the game against the Jaguars a couple years ago. You look at the 4-interception game against the Texans this past year in the playoffs. It's just not ideal. I think the talent is all there to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. I personally have him at number 7, but Herbert's the guy, and he comes in at number 8 on this list. And at number 7 on this list, moving from 49 points to 58 points, is a guy who once played in Los Angeles, and that's Jared Goff. Jared Goff, again, the career resurgence thing is something we got to keep talking about here because it's so important to defining who these quarterbacks are. Jared Goff was sent to Detroit to die. Dan Campbell was hired as the head coach, and everybody laughed at him with the opening press conference. He's talking about like biting off kneecaps and stuff like that. Everybody thought it was like a gimmick. No one actually took the Detroit Lions seriously because the Lions at that point were under Matt Patricia. It was like, this is a laughing stock right now. This team is not anything to be taken seriously. Now they just hired a guy that's talking about biting off kneecaps in press conferences, and they just traded for Jared Goff. They just shipped Matt Stafford, the greatest quarterback in their franchise history, to the Rams for Jared Goff, who's basically getting kicked to the curb by Sean McVay. Yes, he got to them Super Bowl, but this team sucks. This team freaking stinks, and now we're going to bring him in. But they believed in him. They battled through it. He came in with the thumb injury, played through the thumb injury, so when that was like, okay, this is a guy that I think Dan Campbell can rally around. And that Ben Johnson was there. They built around this offensive line. They got Penei Sewell in there, Taylor Decker, Frank Radno, I think just retired as well. But you also have the likes of Sam Laporte, drafted him last year. You got Jamison Williams. You traded up to get him with the Vikings. Amon-Ra St. Brown's there. You took a punt on Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. That's worked out tenfold. He had 1,400 yards rushing this past year. And David Montgomery creating one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL. Sonic and Knuckles at running back, and Jared Goff is the orchestrator behind all of that. Yes, you have these players around him, but he's still making all the throws. He's so accurate when he's making these kinds of throws. I mean, the game against the Seahawks this past year, he went 18 for 18 in a game, which is not something you're actively trying to do, but it just so happened that's what happened. And he threw for a couple 400-yard games this year. He had the insane shootout game with Josh Allen against in Detroit. I didn't talk about that Matt Stafford, but he also had that insane shootout game as well. We don't talk about that one though because the Rams won, but the Bills won the game against the Lions, so we could talk about that one. But Jared Goff becoming a top 5 MVP candidate, second in the league in passing yard, 37 touchdowns this past year. There is no right. If you would have brought this up like 3 years ago, and you would have said 2 of the top 3 passers in the NFL are Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff, guys who are on teams that win their division, and the Lions with Jared Goff have the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. They were a 15-2 team this past year. Yes, they got lit up and destroyed against the Washington Commanders in the playoffs, but this team's scary. This team's good. If they didn't have the injured to hell and back defense that they had, maybe they could have made a real threat at the Commanders or the Eagles. Maybe they could have done something, but we will never know that. But Jared Goff, I love the resurgence story. This is a common theme here. We talk about Darnold, we talk about Baker, we got Jared Goff. Like, it's just fun to root for these kind of guys, and he comes in at number 7. And we're taking a big jump to number 6 on this list. So Jared Goff had 58 points. 6th place has 90 points, and that is Jaden Daniels, who had one of the best rookie seasons that we've seen probably ever. Maybe the greatest rookie season. We're talking about expectations going into a year for a specific team in the Washington Commanders. No one thought they were going to be where they were. Not a single person, not even those diehard Commanders fan, thought that they were going to go to the NFC Championship game and have Jaden Daniels put up the stuff that he did. 3,500 yards passing, over 800 yards rushing, setting an NFL rookie record for rushing yards by a quarterback, setting a rookie record in Commanders history for passing yards in the season. 28-something touchdowns in there as well. Like, Jaden Daniels was just an electric factory this past year. You talk about the game against the Chicago Bears where he had that insane throw, the Hail Mary play at the end of the game. Shout out Stevenson for that one. You talk about the game against the Cincinnati Bengals in there as well. There were so many things that Jaden Daniels did where you just sat back and just were like, I don't know how he's doing it. As a rookie doing this, and for a team that hasn't won a playoff game since 2005, and he goes down to Tampa, and they go in and beat the Buccaneers, which ironically in 2005, that was the team they beat then as well. But then they go to the NFC Championship game, they pound the Detroit Lions in Detroit. We talked about that before, but I don't think that gets talked about, like, how insane of a feat that was. Again, this is a 15-2 team. Yes, their defense was injured to hell and back, but 15-2, and you go in there and go into their trap, as Kirk Cousins says, and take over their trap. And Jaden Daniels, he was just that guy. Yes, the season didn't end the way you wanted by getting your cheeks clapped by the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game, but hey, Jaden Daniels, I had him at number 5 on my list. I didn't say it was Jared Goff. I had Jared Goff at number 9, but Jaden Daniels, he came in at number 5. And the guy who I had at number 8, a lot of people like more than I do. And I understand why. And there are only 8 points separating 6 and 5. And I think you know where I'm going with this. It's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts kind of divides opinions on social media and on talk shows across the nation about, is he an elite quarterback? Is he even a Hall of Fame quarterback? I've seen debates talking about, is he better than Cam Newton or prime Cam Newton and stuff like that. And Jalen Hurts is in a really weird predicament because Jalen Hurts is good. Jalen Hurts is a very talented quarterback, but you're on a team like the Philadelphia Eagles where you basically created the Monstars. Or like Vince Young said all those years ago, this is the dream team. Like, that wasn't the dream team with Vince Young, with Michael Vick and all those guys. This is the dream team. You had Saquon Barkley, who's 100 yards away from Eric Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record. You had A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Yes, they missed games, but those two guys are make one of the best receiving tandems in the NFL. You have the biggest, strongest, most dominant offensive line in the NFL as well. But Jalen Hurts is the orchestrator of that. We talked about that before. And yes, his stats weren't really there. He didn't even have 20 passing touchdowns this year. He didn't even have 3,000 passing yards this year. But when he needed to step up, he stepped up. Because the Kansas City Chiefs were selling out to the run the entire time. They said, if you're going to beat us, you're going to need Jalen Hurts to throw the football. And he did. He made numerous big throws throughout the game. We talked about the big throw that he had to Devontae Smith. But Jalen Hurts, he might not have the biggest arm. He might not be the most flashy, but he's an effective quarterback. And again, I don't have him that high on mine. Again, I have him at number 8 because I don't see that elite trait there compared to likes of Daniel, Stafford, and Herbert, who I have all above him. Not to mention the other guys that we have in here as well. But Jalen Hurts, he's just a really easy guy to root for, except for the tush, but I know a lot of people hate the tush push, but it's effective. It's the most effective play in the NFL. It is the most single dominant play in the NFL. He has 14 rushing touchdowns. He led the Eagles in rushing touchdowns this past year. I saw the stat before about what his percentage of rushing touchdowns are from 1 yard out, but it's so dominant, so why not do it? If nobody's stopping it, why stop doing it? Scratch where it itches type thing. But Jalen Hurts, he comes at number 5. He went all over the place on this thing. But again, that's how the debates around Jalen Hurts tend to go. But moving on to number 4, I don't really think there's a debate on who the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL are. I think you could debate on where the order is, except for number 4. I'm pretty content with my number 4 pick, and this is the guy who finished number 4 here, and that's Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow led the league in passing. He had the Triple Crown this past year. He led the league in attempts, yards, touchdowns, all that stuff. Like, Joe Burrow had a great season. But the Bengals didn't. The Bengals missed the playoffs. The Bengals started 1-4 this past season. They lost opening week to the New England freaking Patriots. I don't think a lot of people really expected to win more than 3 games this year. And you lost to them week 1. And you're Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, all these guys. And you can't beat the Patriots. But the Bengals defense was so damn bad. It's brutally bad. And it doesn't matter if you have Jamar Chase on one side and T. Higgins on the other side. And T. Higgins missed some time as well this year. But Chase Brown at running back is not going to do it for you. So you're just going to have to throw the piss out of the football. And which is why he had 652 pass attempts this past year when no one else even had more than 600 attempts. Like, Joe Burrow had to throw the ball so much to keep the Bengals in the game. You look at that 1-4 start. He had 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions to his name. That is an insane stat line. They went 1-4 in those games. Now, a lot of those were 1-score games in there. It just you needed him to be perfect, and sometimes perfect wasn't enough because the other team was just that much more better. But when Burrow and Jamar Chase are clicking, there aren't a lot of better quarterback wide receiver duos in the NFL. But Burrow comes in at number 4 for me. And yes, I talk about the completions and the yards and the touchdowns and all that stuff. But we've talked about, again, the most elite receivers in the NFL. Like, you get 1A, 1B at this point with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I personally still have Justin Jefferson number 1. But Jamar Chase, I think, is the most single-talented receiver in the entire NFL. That's why he won the Triple Crown. That's why he became a first-team All-Pro this past year. And I don't want to put that as like a blip on Joe Burrow, but it does affect the way I look at it versus the other quarterbacks that are in the top 4. And he has all the great stats and everything, but that he comes in at number 4 for me. And he came first place on 3 people's boards, which I was kind of surprised about that because that was more first place votes than the guy who comes in at number 3, and that is Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson had his best season of his career, passing the ball, 41 touchdowns, 3 or 4 interceptions this past year, set new career highs in every single statistical category for passing except for completion percentage. He still put up a good amount of rushing yards as well. But with how this Ravens team plays, the Ravens defense got better as the season went on. They were the best rush defense in the NFL this past year. The pass defense wasn't great to start, but they kicked it into gear at the end of the year, but that was more because they were playing a bunch of nothings, I guess you could call it. Not the most elite passing groups in the NFL, but they were always great against the run this past year. But the Ravens, you talk about Derrick Henry at running back, 1,900 yards at running back, and I don't think people talk about enough how important that element to a passing offense is. Having a guy that can suck up 1,900 yards opens up so many other holes in the secondary. Like, you're throwing to wide open receivers. And I don't want to try and take away anything from Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson is the most electrifying player in the NFL. Barring position, he's the most electrifying player in the NFL. He's gotten so much better with his decision-making as well. Barring the playoff game against the Bills, the interception, the fumble in there, but that's beside the point. I personally had Lamar Jackson number 2. Lamar Jackson, again, with the numbers that he was able to put up, but the 6 all-pro teammates that he had on there was a lot of help with the Ravens this year, but he's still able to put up an insane stat line. But Lamar Jackson comes at number 3. Number 1 and 2. I think most people out there expected this number 1 and 2. Maybe not in the same order. Maybe you thought it would be a different order, but number 1 and 2 are the 2 guys that you and I are both thinking about right now. And I will reveal number 1. Number 1 on this list, let me find the points. Number 1 on this list had 185 points out of a possible 200. Number 1 was also the guy who got the most votes for first place. I believe there was 8 first place votes in there for him. Second place on this list got 169. Just to put in perspective, Lamar Jackson got 163 and Joe Burrow got 155. So the gap between first and second is bigger than the gap between second and fourth, which is crazy to think about. But number 1 on this list is Josh Allen. It's Josh Allen. It's Josh Allen. It's the reigning MVP. This guy put forth an immense season this past year. Statistically, not comparable to some of the other years he's had, but if you look at you look at the 5th consecutive season with 4,000 plus yards of offense. You look at the 5th consecutive season of 40 plus touchdowns, NFL record. He holds the NFL record for most touchdowns, wins, and all that great stuff through a player's first 7 seasons. He's only going to keep getting better. And you look at some specific games that he had against the Rams. He became the first player in NFL history to throw 3 touchdowns and rush for 3 touchdowns in the game. Against the San Francisco 49ers, he's the first quarterback in NFL history to throw, rush, and receive. You could, whatever about the receiving touchdown, but he's the first quarterback in NFL history to do so since Otto Graham. Like, that is an insane feat in itself. The Bills had 13 different players catch touchdowns this year, including himself. The Bills didn't have a single receiver that registered over 900 yards receiving. And after Khalil Shakir, no one registered more than 700 yards receiving. Like, this Bills team is Josh Allen. And you look at the comparisons with James Cook and the other running backs on this list, like mainly Derrick Henry. James Cook just had over 1,000 yards rushing. He led the Bills in rushing touchdowns as well with 16. Josh Allen had 12 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen became super smart with the football in his hands. He didn't force the issue as much before. They're dinking and diming more than they ever have before, and I think that's a very smart thing from Joe Brady because the Bills didn't have that true number 1 alpha receiver. They traded for Amari Cooper, but Amari Cooper fell back into the fold a little bit because the Bills implemented an everybody eats style of offense at wide receiver, and it worked immensely. And the Josh Allen, once again, for the 2nd consecutive season, had no interceptions in the playoffs. He has 4 passing touchdowns, to 0 interceptions in the playoffs. Obviously, the game against the Chiefs happened. Dalton Kincaid couldn't come down with the ball when he was scrambling around the pocket, floated up to him, and still got an accurate pass off to him. The Bills ranked in the bottom half of the league in defense this past year, and yet the Bills were still the 2nd highest scoring team in the NFL without a receiver that registered over 900 yards of receiving. That is freaking ridiculous. That is insane. I don't think people truly grasp what kind of season Josh Allen had. And you can call me biased and all this stuff because I obviously had him at number 1. But Josh Allen put forth a season that I think is getting so wrongly scrutinized on social media from people who didn't watch the Bills actually play this year. Josh Allen is elite. Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL, and this list proves it. This list proves it. But number 2, obviously, Patrick Mahomes. I can't not talk about Patrick Mahomes. He just didn't have the season that we're expecting from Patrick Mahomes. Statistically, it wasn't really the same season from him, but you lose like Rashee Rice early. Hollywood Brown barely played this year. You traded for Nuke Hopkins, but he wasn't really in there, and Xavier Worthy was up and down the entire year, more used as a gadget player. You lost Isaiah Pacheco early, so you're relying on Kareem Hunt as the running back there. The offensive line was non-existent in the Super Bowl, just got absolutely lit up the entire freaking time. The Chiefs, ironically, didn't score 30 points one time this season until they played the Bills in the AFC Championship game, which is how that always works. Of course, the Chiefs, the one time they do it the entire season is when they play the Bills in the playoffs. Super cool. Appreciate that, Patrick. But the Chiefs rely more on their defense at this point in time. They don't want Patrick Mahomes to be Superman every single time. They don't need him to make insane throws down the field every single play. And I think some people are looking at that in a negative light as, oh, he's declining. It's like, no, he's just asked to do less. I mean, the Chiefs have put so much capital into their defense. You look at their defense, 9 of their 11 starters, they were drafted by the Chiefs. Like, the Chiefs have put so much emphasis on building their defense and getting younger on the defensive side of the ball, and it's gotten them a Super Bowl. Yes, they didn't win the Super Bowl this past year against the Philadelphia Eagles, but I don't think anybody else in the league this year would have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. I got that question all the time. If the Bills beat the Chiefs, do you think they would have beaten the Eagles? No, obviously not. That Eagles team was just going to win regardless, and Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. If I had to choose a quarterback in a clutch moment, Patrick Mahomes would still be my guy to choose there. I personally had him at number 3, but that's just my own list. And he came in at number 2, and I wasn't shocked about that. And some people had him at number 1. He got the second most first place votes in there. It didn't surprise me in the slightest that he got that because he is still Patrick Mahomes. Because if you want to look at this and go like, there's only one quarterback on this list that is a top 5 quarterback of all time. And if you want to look at it like that, then Patrick Mahomes obviously still number 1. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. No, until someone breaks into that top 5, there's no conversation there for some people out there, and I understand that completely. But if you're talking about the current state of the NFL, Josh Allen, in my opinion, my completely unbiased opinion, is the best quarterback in the NFL. I would put Lamar Jackson second. I had Patrick Mahomes third. I had Joe Burrow fourth. Jaden Daniels fifth. I had Matt Stafford sixth. Herbert seventh. Jalen Hurts eighth. Jared Goff nine. And Baker Mayfield at number 10. But to recap the list in its totality, Josh Allen came in at number 1 in the combined consensus list. We had Mahomes at 2, Lamar Jackson 3, Joe Burrow 4, Jalen Hurts 5, Jaden Daniels at number 6. Number 7 was Jared Goff. Number 8 was Justin Herbert. 9 was Matt Stafford. And 10 was Baker frickin' Mayfield. And going outside of the top 10, we had CJ Stroud at number 11, Dak Prescott at 12, Brock Purdy 13, Sam Darnold 14, Bo Nix 15. Then we had Jordan Love at 16 and Trevor Lawrence bringing up the rear at 17. So, yeah, that is the official consensus TLBS staff quarterback rankings for the 2025 season. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, make sure to check out the blog post down in the description. You can check out this year's blog post. Also, make sure to check out 2024, 2023, and 2022 as well, just to see how the NFL has shifted over the years. Some of the people that are in this list, that they've contributed all 4 years, and I appreciate that. I'll put their names on the screen somewhere, so just give a round of applause to everybody that participated this year, and I can't wait to do it next year. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. My name's Logan Blackman, and I will see you guys later. Peace. Make sure to like the video.